But I want to introduce you to LeiLani Quiray. She is the founder of the Be the Change HR. She has a fiery passion for both human resources and philanthropy. With over 20 years of experience of HR practicing and philanthropic work, LeiLani just desired to build a business that was different from your everyday human resources consulting firm. I like that. Be the Change HR Inc. is that firm. Be the Change HR Inc. is an Orange County based conscious company and social enterprise. I'm going to say that again. A conscious company and social enterprise. I love that. That provides HR support for small to medium sized businesses in any facet of HR, from pre-hire to post-term and everything else that happens in between. And there's a lot that happens in between. I'm sure LeiLani can attest to that. So I'm going to introduce and welcome LeiLani to the show. I would say to the show, like we're on a show, to this event. We're going to get a little capture of her video, and then she's going to chat with all of you. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I am super stoked to speak with you all today and share with you a little bit about me, a conscious company, and then HR for Startups. So here, away we go. And I'm going to ask everyone to participate. So first, I'm going to ask, can you see my screen?
Not yet. This is Tiana. I'm going to be your sidekick.
Thank you so much. Let's try this one more time.
Okay.
Right.
Oh, wait, they can see. Well, let me see. They can see you.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, they can see you. Were you sharing a screen?
I was. 1 second. Let's try this one more time.
Okay.
Here we go. Now you can
there
see. There we go. All right. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. I'm really excited to talk to you about building a conscious company, and then we'll talk about HR for startups. So how many of you use the chat feature? How many of you have heard of a social enterprise, an impact-based business, a social entrepreneur? Any of you? Tiana, what do you see?
I'm waiting for some stuff to come in the chat box. Not yet. Melissa says not yet. She hasn't heard of any. Yes. Diana says no. Getting a couple of yes, no, a lot of no's. Cool. A lot of no's coming in.
That's good. Well, we are going to learn today. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I got started. So I always say I was born and raised in human resources. I've always had a career in HR. And in my 20s, and I'm going to get real personal with everybody here, I went through some really hard times. I hit rock bottom, I'd say a couple times actually. And when I came out of that, I told myself, I'm going to help other people who are in that situation too, make it to that next step, right? It was really important to me. So when I felt like I was healthy enough, I felt like I was ready to go, I started volunteering at an Orange County based nonprofit called Working Wardrobe. Some of you might have heard of it. And they help men and women get back to work from difficult life situations. So as I climbed the corporate ladder and moved my way up in HR, I was always volunteering. And at the same time, like in my heart, I really wanted to figure out a way, like how do I do human resources and philanthropy at the same time? And also, and unfortunately so, some of the places that I worked, volunteering really wasn't like, I couldn't do it more than a couple times a month. It's like, you got to be here. And I thought there has to be a better way. So mulling around in my head, these ideas of, do I start a nonprofit? And then I realized, well, that's not how that works, right? And then one year back in 2017, I had a tough year, not my worst year, but I had a really tough year. I got sick twice. I worked in a workforce that was, oh gosh, one of the worst I've ever seen. I was actually in it, so that's awful. When I say that and I'm in HR, like that's pretty bad. So I took some time off. And in that time off, my grandfather passed away, I was really close to him. And I remember very clearly when the plane touched down in Long Beach after I came home from mourning him, I thought to myself, like popped into my head, why don't you start a company that does HR and philanthropy at the same time? Took some time off, did my logo and my website. I did what I thought I was supposed to do, because you're talking to an HR person who started a business. And October 6th of 2017, I launched Be the Change HR. I wrote this blog, and I get emotional when I read this. I wrote this blog the day I launched the company. This is just a small snippet of it. I put my dream that I will influence others to be a conscious capitalist, that my company will grow into several consultants who believe in great work and the betterment of the world through their work. See, I get emotional about it because where we're at today is an amazing place. And I'll tell you about that in a second, because to get from that point to where we are now, it wasn't super easy. Like I said, I wasn't a business person. I was an HR practitioner who had to build a business, and I wanted to launch a conscious company. At the beginning, I donated 10% of our profits. I would still volunteer at Working Wardrobes and WHW. And even then, in the very beginning, I had no idea what I had. In describing to somebody else what I had, someone said to me, "Oh, you have a social enterprise." And I was like, "What's a social enterprise?" Like some of you were talking, like, I don't know what that is. I had no idea I had built that. So a little snapshot of where we are today. Today, we're a team of 9 strong. I'm very excited about that. We teach a 2-hour job readiness course free of charge to the clients of nonprofits. And then anyone who attends that class, we give them free one-on-one coaching. We work with nonprofits who help men and women out of homelessness, trafficking, domestic violence, veterans in transition, teen moms, single parents, you name it. Just yesterday, we taught a class to a nonprofit called Rebirth Homes. That's a safe house for women who've been saved from trafficking. We donate to various nonprofits. And what I'm going to do is kind of show you my path on how I got here, and then give you ideas on how you yourself can do that too. So I asked the question earlier, what is a social enterprise? A social enterprise, or a social business, is defined as a business that has specific social objectives that serve its primary purpose. Social enterprises seek to maximize profits while maximizing benefits to society and the environment. Their profits are principally used to fund social programs. How many of you have heard of the triple bottom line? People, planet, and profits.
I am waiting to see what's coming in the chat. So someone says yes, they've heard of that. Yep. No. A lot of no's again.
Okay, so write this down. It's people, planet, profits, and how you can measure all of those things while building your social enterprise and making that social impact to the people around you. Okay, so I want you first to start with your why. What is your purpose? How will you change the world for the better? You know, I always like, what is the quote? Like, people, the people who think they're crazy enough to change the world actually will. That is true. If you believe that you could solve world hunger, I really want you to go after that purpose and that intention with your life and your business, and change the world for a better. My purpose was to inspire others through my skills as an HR person. Here we are today. I have a company that does that for people. And then, I think about what you're passionate about too. That's really important as well. And also what you value. And so with that foundation, you can start to think about, okay, how do I do the two things? Like I said earlier, human resources and philanthropy, like how the heck do we mend these two things together? So you can join both your business, which makes the money. You got to make the money, right? And then your give back to the community around us. In the beginning, I went from volunteering, just myself, into figuring out, oh my gosh, instead of going into a nonprofit that does the workplace readiness, our company can develop that curriculum entirely itself, and then offer it to nonprofits free of charge, and then offer that job coaching free of charge, right? So on one side, the business does human resources for small business. On the other, it does the free job readiness coaching. And that's how we've married the two. Can any of you think of an example? I'll give you a freebie. How many of you have heard of Tom's shoes? So that is a social enterprise. Tiana,
Let's see. Yeah, I'm waiting. Yes, I'm seeing some yeses. It looks like everybody's heard of Tom's. They might even have on a pair.
Yep. Perfect. So that's a great example of a social enterprise. And if you have any others that you know about, just think about the people that you buy from. Ladies out there, if any of you have heard of Cora, they provide feminine products to girls in third world countries to remove the barriers so they can get the education they need. Those are social enterprises. So I encourage you, if you do know of any, to share it in the chat with everyone so we can all get an education kind of other businesses that do the same thing. Okay, so changing the world and then your marketing and your branding. This is important as well. So how can you include your passion and purpose in changing the world into your company's branding and messaging? You need to weave it into everything. When I first started this business, I would say the job coaching as an afterthought. I would say the give back as an afterthought. And I thought I have to make sure I weave it into my elevator pitch. So I'm not going to give you the whole thing and bore you, but our elevator pitch sounds something like this. We help small businesses with human resources, and we provide free job readiness classes to nonprofits for free, right? It's in our tagline. HR pros, life changers. And we mean that. We change people's lives. Of course, social media, you share it. I know you all know about that. It's in our newsletter. We communicate how we've done good. The nonprofits that we work with, the only ask we ask of them is to do a social media blast for us, right? Once we do the class, we just ask them, post something somewhere, your newsletter, your socials, and just say that we work together. So it gives us a little bit more visibility. Okay, metrics. So that is how will you measure your impact. It is wonderful to do good for the world, trust me, but you also want to make sure there's a way that you can measure it. You can do it as a percentage you give of money of your top line or your bottom line revenue. You can say we devote X amount of hours per quarter or per year, or a certain percentage of our labor goes to helping other people. For us, and again, this is part of the triple bottom line. For us, we measure how many hours each quarter. Last quarter was 40 hours. And then we do percentage of net profit. So we donate 7% of our net profit to nonprofits. So think about how you can measure it.
And it looks like we have a couple of folks who offered 2 companies, Warby Parker Glasses from Grace, and then Susan Bombas Socks, or Bombas Socks as social enterprises.
Very cool. Very cool. So everyone write those down. And if you're interested in either of those things, support businesses that really make an impact. Company culture. So how will you weave into your culture and the values, the purpose of your business? For us, I pay our people to do the volunteering, right? So the classes that we hold, they're not volunteering. The company actually pays for that, and we measure that through an app called Toggle. How will you train your leaders to be conscious leaders? If you got a pen and paper, write this down. It's a book that changed my outlook on business altogether. It's called Conscious Capitalism. It's a really great read. And then how will you lead your organization to serve stakeholders? And when you are a social enterprise, those stakeholders are the people that you're helping. So for us, it's the job seekers who've been in really bad situations, and we're helping them gain the confidence they need to get that next job. I'm going to leave you with this quote. Just as happiness is best experienced by not aiming for it directly, profits are best achieved by not making them the primary goal of business. They are the outcome when companies do business with a sense of higher purpose, build their businesses on love and caring instead of fear and stress, and grow from adversity. That's Frankel's principles reinterpreted for business. The paradox of profits is that, like happiness, they are best achieved by not aiming directly for them. And let me tell you about this company. First year over the next year, we did 1 times the year prior. Then we grew 2 times. This year, we've gone 3 times. Making money has never been the focus of this business. It's been helping others. But guess what? And I always say this, the money will come if you help others. Okay, so we're going to switch gears now. I'm going to take you from a conscious company to human resources. So just buckle up for me. I'm like, it's a total switch, but we're going to talk about HR. And I promise you, I'll make it as fun as possible. So this is HR 101 for startups, a crash course. Buckle in. We're going to go kind of fast, but this is what you need to know for your startup and your small business with human resources. So first, you need to lay an HR foundation. You can't build a great building on a weak foundation. You must have a solid foundation if you're going to have a strong superstructure. And guess how interesting this next slide is? Insurance. You need insurance. You definitely do. So if you have employees, you're going to need workers' compensation. You cannot go without it. The other insurance that might be important to have, it's not a necessity, but I highly advise that you get it, is employer practices liability insurance. That's EPLI for short. That protects you against certain lawsuits like harassment or discrimination. Then other insurances like general liability, E&O, D&O, cybersecurity. It's going to be different depending on what industry you're in. So make sure you work with an insurance broker to figure out what insurances you actually need besides the work comp. Then you have payroll. You got to pay your people. And I highly recommend, number one, please don't pay people cash under the table. And number two, use a payroll service. They are really important because, well, they help you calculate your taxes. I've only seen one time in a client where they use the little tax paper booklet. I don't encourage you to use that. Instead, use a payroll service. They'll do your quarterly and year-end reports. You can track time off. If you have employees who clock in and out, they can do that for you too. And payroll systems, the good ones, are made to scale and grow. So what do I mean by that? Maybe you only pay for the payroll because you're on a budget, but then you add automated onboarding, and then you're recruiting like crazy. So you add an applicant tracking system, which is a recruiting system, and then you have benefits. So you see, you can add these little pieces on and not pay for the whole entire thing if you get the right payroll service. Okay, I love it when I meet with clients and they say, I have my posters. So I suggest all-in-one posters, but those are the really big posters that you see in the workplace with the really tiny print that has all the laws that apply to employees. So you need a copy of that, whether they can access it virtually or they can see it in a lunchroom when we do go back to lunchrooms. And then you'll need files, of course, but not just one file. You want 3 different files. Personnel file for all the employment information, the medical file for medical information. You don't want to keep those together. You want to keep them separate for the individual employee. So medical file, health insurance forms, doctor's notes, workers' comp claims, keep those separate. And then you'll keep all your I-9s together in one binder, but make sure you have those 3 separate. You'll need an employee handbook. I know they're like the most interesting thing you would ever read in your life. They actually are not. I read them all the time, but that's what we do, right? But they contain all the policies and procedures for your company, including the ones required by law, like a harassment prevention policy. You need that in a handbook. It's going to have guidelines for your employees, like what they do if they're going to be late, or what time they should be in the office. And then it's going to outline in short what their benefits are. So there are a lot of really affordable options out there for you to do handbooks. Okay, so there is federal law and there is state law. And how it works is whichever law benefits the employee most is what applies. And we are in the state of California. I'm guessing most of you are in California. So generally, California laws will supersede federal laws. And there's a few examples here: exempt versus non-exempt. The rules for federal law are different than state. And let me back up a little. When I say exempt, I mean people who are paid salary. And when I say non-exempt, I mean people who are paid hourly and have to punch a clock and are supposed to be given their proper meal and rest breaks. So understand the difference there. 1099 versus employees. We just had a law, AB 5, come out. It is a law that is a 3-pronged factor test to figure out, is this person truly an employee or an independent contractor? So you want to make sure you understand that very clearly so you don't get caught in that one. And then the federal protected classes are different than the state ones. Those are protections under Title VII. There's a list of here. California has more, but do know California was the only, over federal was the one that covered sexual orientation, gender identity, or expression. But currently this year, it has been turned into federal law. So that it's a federal protection now, which is awesome. So I talked about federal. You want to know state too. So here's just a short list of the things that you need to know as a business. And I know it's a lot. It is a lot. But if you take the time to educate yourself or work with someone who knows HR, just ask the questions so you know. So there's an expansion of the California Family Rights Act, and that is a medical leave for people that they can take. And this year, or actually 2021, it's going to be for employers of just 5 or more. Minimum wage, it goes up in California every year, and some cities are actually higher than the state rate. So remember, you're going to go with the higher rate, the one that benefits the employee the most. There's new laws on having to report COVID-19 cases through workers' comp. There is sick pay. So here in California, it's 24 hours. But guess what? There's Other cities that it's actually higher: San Francisco, San Diego, Los Angeles. Those cities are more than 24 hours of sick pay a year. Ban the box. What is this law? This means that you cannot put on an application, nor can you ask someone if they have a prior criminal record. This gives people who do have a prior record more of a chance to get a job, right? So you cannot ask people that. There are leaves and laws by employee headcount. So depending on how many employees you employ, there are different laws that apply, like harassment prevention training is for employers with 5 or more employees in California. I talked about the CFRA protections. There's other laws all the way up until 100 employees. So make sure you know where you land. And then we're talking about by industry. If you're in a specialized industry like entertainment, farming, trucking, you might have different laws that apply to you. So make sure you educate yourself on those. Okay, so we're going to talk really quickly about, okay, you're ready to staff. So smart hires will lead to less fires and all the kinds of fires, I mean terms and lawsuits. So take a look at this, take a screenshot if you like. I'm just going to go to the middle one, mid-range positions, how much it costs to lose an employee. Look at this, 20% of annual salary for mid-range positions, so 30K to 50K, cost the replacing manager, 40K to cost, I'm sorry, the cost to replace a 40K manager is $8,000. That is a lot of money. So what do you want to do? You want to hire right. The first thing you want to write is a job description. There are many great templates out there on how you do that, because your job description will become your job ad. So make sure you do it in that order and not the other way around. And then a little bit of job posting do's and don'ts. I don't know about you, but if you read through job postings, they are so boring. So you want to make sure you spice it up a little bit and make it fun and make it really feel like your workplace. In my job postings, I ask people, what's your favorite food? Right? Like, what book are you reading? Something fun like that. So make it fun. You want to add the summary of your job description into it, and then make clear submission instructions. Like, I ask people to tell me their favorite food when they submit their application. And then you don't want to ask questions that you're not supposed to ask by law. That is, if people are married, if they've committed crimes, like we talked about. You don't want to give out the hiring manager's information, and don't be vague. You want to give as much detail as possible, including how much you're going to pay. I wouldn't hide that from them. And then in interviews, I want to give you one of my best practices. So I think more than one person should interview for certain. I think at least 3. I think one of those persons should be someone who's learning how to interview, so you can train them. And then I have this rating scale. Again, you're more than welcome to take a screenshot of this. Before the group comes together to discuss this individual, our team uses this, right? A rating scale of 1 to 4, and then we shout out our number, like I'm a 1 or I'm a 2. So it kind of gives the person a chance to vote before influenced by anyone else's either bias in the situation or decision. So it's fun to use, and then it's fun. It's like a group exercise for everyone.
LeiLani, can
yes.
you go back to that one slide? There's someone requesting in the chat. Can you show the costs to hire information, please? They missed the screenshot opportunity.
Go for it. Yeah, you're
I
welcome.
think this one, yes.
Screenshot any of this. I put the handle in the beginning. You're welcome to share this on Twitter, Instagram, anywhere you think this information would be valuable to your
Okay,
family.
great.
Good.
Okay, you got 2 seconds left. She's going to go on.
Do we get it? Can I get a yes?
Let's see in the chat box. I'm sure they got it by now. If not, someone captured it for them. I say continue.
Okay, here we go. All right. So finally, you want to make sure your workforce is diverse. So always keep that in mind. And then this rule of thumb: when someone's interviewing, it is more cultural fit than it ever is skills, knowledge, and ability. It is someone that fits your organization, whether it's their values, it's what your organization holds in their culture. You want to make sure that's the fit first before you look at knowledge, skills, and abilities. Those things can be taught. The fit into your organization cannot. Okay, so now that you have employees, let's talk about keeping them. So you want to stay competitive. So this is a survey in order from the Society of Human Resource Management on what is important to employees. Look at the first one: respectful treatment of employees at all levels. I don't know about you, if you've ever been in a workforce where kind of work for a leader that just kind of barks orders and tells people what to do, or people just expect people to put their head down and work and get it done because, quote, they're being paid. That is not a way we should be treating our workforces at all. We should be respectful of each other at all levels. It doesn't matter whether you're the CEO or the janitor. Be kind to one another. And of course, number 2 is compensation. We got to get paid properly. So if you look at this list, again, you're welcome to screenshot it. When you start your businesses, or if you already have a business, take a look and think, okay, where as owners, as leaders, are you falling in this list with your priority with your people? You want to pay them right. You want to treat them well. You want to trust them. Trust me, that goes so far. So make sure that you're really looking at your workforce and seeing, okay, am I hitting all these high points for my people? And if I'm not, how can I? And then culture. So your culture is going to exist no matter what. Sometimes I hear like, I want to build an X culture. And I'm like, well, you already have one if you already have a business. So it's how your organization thinks, breathes, and feels together. And this happens, like I say, no matter what. So ask, how do you want your culture to be? What steps need to be taken to achieve that? What kind of tools are you using to measure that? You don't have to spend thousands of dollars to do this. You could look at a survey, put it in Google Forms, send it to your staff, let them answer it anonymously to see, kind of gauge, like, where are we at right now with our culture? Where can we improve? Or if you're rocking on all levels, how can you continue to support that? And that'll definitely make you competitive. And then benefits, of course, healthcare, if and when you can afford it, a retirement plan, and then a wellness program. And I'll tell all you out there this, by 2022 in the state of California, they're going to require you to either take the state benefit of, it's called Cal Savers. You have to sign up for their retirement program, or you as an employer have to provide it yourself. So start thinking about, maybe if you're really small, that could be the first benefit that you can offer. And it doesn't cost that much to implement it, unlike healthcare. I understand healthcare is super expensive. So maybe something to think about first is maybe retirement, and then you'll be satisfying the requirement. And then of course, a wellness program. Oh my gosh, we all need it now. I wish they would open the gyms, especially for me. But you can start thinking about when that happens. Maybe you can add a stipend for people to go to gym. You can do an employee assistance program. We call that an EAP for short. But think about what benefits you can provide as a baseline. Then we're going to talk about training really quickly. So this study by Career Builder says 58% of managers did not receive management training. Yes, someone does a great job in their role, they're promoted, but then it's like, well, did anybody teach them how to manage people? Maybe they've never done it before. Those are really important skills. So you want to make sure that you start training your managers when you get to that level. Training is very important in an organization that wants to grow and be successful. It is necessary for all employees, including upper management, to receive training and development. Without it, it'd be impossible for employees to grow. There are resources out there that you can do training for free. I'm trying to remember, Bright Talk. Bright Talk is a great one. You can have, there's a ton on there. Coursera, they've got free training on there as well. So you do not have to have a bunch of money and spend thousands of dollars on learning management systems. You can go out there on a budget and find a way to train your team. Then we're going to talk about performance really briefly. So I am not a fan of the 12-month look back system. That is where after a whole year goes by, you go, well, let me try to remember everything you did in this entire year. And then I'm going to give you a rating on yourself. I am a huge proponent of goal setting. And that's the way we do it here, the BTC way. It has nothing to do with performance. It has everything to do with, what do you love in your job? What would you like to do more of? How can I support you professionally in your goals? How can I support you personally in your goals? And then do that every 3 months. So that way you can track to see how are you doing on the goals that you set for yourself, right? So that encourages a person personally and professionally in their career versus giving them a rating scale and then kind of telling, okay, well, I'll talk to you next year. Constant feedback is super important. And then recognition. People just want to hear thank you. So anytime you can, say thanks to the people around you that are helping you. And then my own personal approach on performance management is a very holistic approach. I talk about this all the time. Treat each other like humans. In your companies, in the companies you're going to build, if something is going wrong with someone with their performance or their behavior, I encourage you that the first question you ask them is if everything is okay. A lot of times I've asked my team that. Are you cool? Is everything okay? And oftentimes I'm not going to get back like an answer like, oh, I'm fine, or brush it off. I actually get an answer like, something's going on in my family, or my mom, is in the hospital. It's like, oh, I figured I was, because you can notice with someone's performance that something's going wrong. So I encourage you to really look at the whole person and the whole workforce and not have it be just a conversation of like, I'm going to write you up because you came in late. If someone's not normally late and they're coming in late, like ask them, treat them like humans, like you would a friend, like, are you okay? It'll go such a long way for you, and your team will respect you, trust you, and be vulnerable with you. So really important. And then, okay, so maybe an employee leaves, like this guy is booking it for the door. Some really, really simple basics on that. We've got final pay. So in the state of California, if someone just up and leaves, you get 72 hours to get them their final pay. But if they give more than 72 hours notice, or if you term them on the spot, you have to give them their pay that day. So make sure you do that, because the penalty is 1 day's pay for every day you don't pay them. I think it's a maximum of 30 days. But if you can think about, if even it's just $100 a day, that's going to add up real quick. So make sure you do that. Exit interviews are really vital if you track the data. So it gives the opportunity of the person leaving to say what's going on. And I've also often gotten the question, well, what if no one says anything and that people are constantly refusing? Then isn't that an indicator too, right? So you want to ask people what they thought about the workforce, the benefits, all that. There's many resources out there. You can just Google it and find an exit interview and then track the data. When you're a successful business 5-10 years later, you can start looking, are there trends? Are there ways that we can be better? Severance pay and separation agreements are really just a Band-Aid. If you didn't do something right and illegal, you can try to get someone to sign a severance agreement in order to indemnify you of any wrongdoing. And then you can always provide a reference for someone who's leaving, which I think is really, really helpful. I'm going to loop this all back in and talk about Lisa and our organization and how we operate. So with the job readiness classes that we've done, actually this is the first class I did a year and a half ago with a nonprofit called the Cupcake Girls. They help men and women out of trafficking. And Lisa, I call her Lisa, she came to the class, she took the 2-hour class. I offered the free one-on-one coaching, and she took me up on that offer. And I worked with her a handful of times. And I get a message from her through LinkedIn. Oh, it's emotional. And she says, I got a job. I got a great job at a huge, huge, huge company. And I was just elated and over the moon. And then I get a message from her on LinkedIn again, another 6 months later. She had left that job and started another job, and she had to move in another state. And she was a general manager of one store. And I was just, again, elated and over the moon. And then just a month ago, she messaged me and she said that she was promoted to district manager of the store she was managing. Lisa was trafficked for 17 years of her life. She was out for 4 volunteering and getting rehabilitation. And around the 4th year, that's when her and I met, and she came to the classes. And I get to see people like this through the work that we do grow and find their potential and find a way out of what they were in and into a new part of life. And this is what it's all about. This is why I started my business. It's about helping others. It's about cherishing my team and taking care of them. And guess what? The money just comes. I thank you so much for your time. You're welcome to screenshot this. This is all of our socials. We do some inspo on Instagram. You're welcome to message me if you have any questions or you want more insight into any of this. I'm always happy to help. I greatly, greatly appreciate your time and attention.
Well, we have, thank you, LeiLani, for this information. I think some of the feedback is it's amazing. It's a lot of information. It's good information. And so I'm going to go start with some questions in order with as they've come in. And while we're doing this Q&A, we're going to get the beautiful illustration coming up on the screen from Alina. So she's captured everything. And I'm just going to start. So I've realized that everyone on this attending, and I'll share my video, is at different stages in their leadership, in their entrepreneurial, we'll say business ownership journey. So even if you're at different stages, you may have been either starting your business, you may are a seasoned business, or maybe you haven't even started it yet. So realizing that you got to put it in the context of how she's delivered it. And so it may apply to you in that moment, or you have to look at how you can make it apply. So the first question that came in, and let me just go to our Q&A box here, was from Melissa, and she was asking, LeiLani, when you were talking about the payroll services, she wanted to know if you had some specific payroll services that you can share with her, like names, I think, like a resource.
Yeah, let me ask a question first. So are most of the people on this call in the area from LA Orange County?
I see a yes.
Okay. So
I see some yes. I just seen how we're getting a few of them. Yes. So LA Orange County. One is in Florida.
Welcome, Florida.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm a big supporter of small business, like some of us in the call, right? So one of my go-tos is an Orange County-based business. It's called Payday Workforce Solutions. I actually utilize them myself. So that's a good one. If you're not really looking to scale and grow very fast, there's a platform called Gusto, and it has a beautiful user interface. It's inexpensive. The reason that I don't, if you're going to scale a lot, that I don't go with Gusto is because it doesn't have the ability to do personalized paperwork for an organization in the automated onboarding. So it'll only do the I-9 and the W-4. But guess what? When you hire an employee in California, you have to have like 12 different pieces of documents. You probably need some legal agreements too. So that's why if you're not going to scale real fast, maybe Gusto might work in the meantime. And then there are platforms which I do not promote. Don't tell them I told you this, but ADP's entry-level platform, the customer service is very hard to get a hold of, and that can be very frustrating. So one that I kind of shy people away from is QuickBooks and ADP, because of you need help when you start out, when you first start out. So you need all the customer service you could get. Yeah.
All right. Hopefully that was helpful, Melissa, for you with the payroll services. We also had another question from Kimberly that came in. It says, if you don't have employees, should a small business use payroll service to track and pay themselves?
Yeah. I mean, it depends on, and I guess where this question is coming from, it depends on what your business structure is, right? Because sometimes when you're just starting out, you might not actually have to take a payroll, like a check. There's a certain point, and talk to your CPAs and your accountants about this. There's a certain point where you need to take a salary, but you got to talk to your tax professional, your accountant, on what that looks like. So in the event that you need to take a salary, I still would encourage it. I still would encourage to use a payroll system. And again, if you're going to scale and grow, gosh, we are all so busy. So if you can imagine, okay, you hire, employees, and then you're scrambling to figure out your payroll system, it might be actually nice to already have, worked around and played in it. So that way, when you bring other people on board, it's easier for you to use, because you're going to probably be the one that's going to be running it for a minute.
So what I heard was defer to your tax person or someone who's helping you in the business to determine, because apparently there may be a threshold or something to determine if you need to pay yourself a salary. But it sounds like, LeiLani, you would recommend at some point, especially if you're looking to grow, that why not start off with a payroll service is your recommendation, but to have them talk to someone, right?
Totally, because it's different if you're a sole proprietor than it is if you're a C or S Corp. There are rules. So you want to make sure that you're following those.
Got it. Okay. And there was a question that came through. And so as I'm talking, Africa, she had a question about how you balance, and I wasn't sure what she was referencing with the how you balance. I think it came up as we were talking about training, perhaps. So if you could just clarify in the questions, then I will certainly ask that of LeiLani. Is it hard? This is a question for you from Stacia. Is it hard to become, I think she's saying in HR, having an HR career maybe? Is it hard to become an HR carer or person? Okay.
It's like anything. You just don't wake up and have all the knowledge that you need in order to do the thing. You gotta, I don't know if you've ever read the book. It's a Gladwell book. It's about 10,000 hours. It takes about 10,000 hours to be an expert at something. So just, if you want a career in human resources, you maybe study HR. You don't necessarily have to do that. But you chip away at it. California, I always say if you can do HR in California, you can do it anywhere. So there's certifications too through the Society of Human Resource Management. and the Human Resources Certification Institute, so SHRM and HRCI. And they have programs for college students where you can still get the certification. Those could be a way of you continuing to like educate yourself, but just be curious, right? If you want to work in HR, start working in roles that do that. And there's many different avenues you can go. You could be a generalist. You could be a specialist like on comp or benefits. You could be an attorney. I'd love to see that. I love my employment attorneys. Oh my gosh, we need them so much. But like anything, it takes time.
Well, we did have another question that came through the chat, but I will say we have Iowa in the house as well. So we have, in addition to California, we got Miami, we got Iowa in the house. Okay, so Yoon asked a question, and while I'm talking, can somebody put up LeiLani's last page with her contact info? We have the beautiful capturing illustration, so we'll make sure to get LeiLani's contact information in the chat box for you. But Yoon asked a question, thought you were very inspiring and that you shared so openly, that they want to know if your company is a charity nonprofit 503c, and if not, how do you marry the nonprofit side and making profits for your HR work? So is your organization, is your company a nonprofit 503c?
No, we are not a nonprofit. We're a for-profit business that does a lot of philanthropy and impact in the community around us.
All right. While we're getting, again, your information up there, we still have time for a couple more questions if anybody has some. Oh, yes. So Africa has clarified her question. So the question, LeiLani, is how do you balance from being between being compassionate of employees' personal needs? So this was when you were talking about your employees and being humane and all that. How do you balance between being compassionate of employees' needs and not allowing it to affect the company goals or the professional relationship?
That's a great question. Anytime I have these types of conversations, I follow it up with a statement, something like, but also the business has to run, right? So if someone's having an issue, whether it's performance or behavior, and we talk about maybe it is, like let's say it's a family issue, I always offer actually time off. Do you need time off? Can I help you out in any way? And at the end of that conversation, I say, like you are first, but we also have to remember that the business has to run. So stuff still has to get done. So if you need me to jump in and do it, let me know. If you need resources and tools, let me know. But we got to make money, right? Otherwise we all don't have jobs. And that always goes over well because it's the second part of, that conversation. It's the person first, and then, well, this has to run. And I actually want to step back. The question prior was, are we a 501(c)(3)? And then can you read the second part? Because I don't believe I answered that part.
Yeah, I think it was if you were a 501(c), they were asking how do you marry the nonprofit side and the making profit side, but you're not a 503(c).
Yeah, and so because I figured that in the very beginning when I wanted to do this, I was like, do I start a nonprofit? But that's not how necessarily it would work, because we do human resources for small business, right? So we have this business aspect to it, and then we have the philanthropic aspect. So a 501(c) wouldn't have worked, but there are things out there. There's something called, and they can get confusing, a benefit organization, which is a business structure, and then something called a certified B Corp. And a certified B Corp is just a process where a business can be, it's like a stamp of approval, like you're doing good, you have the triple bottom line, and then you recertify every, I think it's 3 years or so. So this year is the year we're preparing to certify B Corp, which I'm really excited about. And that's why we're really getting our metrics in line so we can prove from, like a number standpoint, our impact on the community.
And certified B Corps are outliers. I mean, if you go online and you look at certified B corporations, there's a lot, but there are I should say there's enough, but there's a few, there's far and in between, and they have to go through a rigorous process of getting that stamp of approval. So LeiLani is absolutely correct in that, and you'll see companies like The Honest Company, at least they did have it at one point, which is Jessica Alba's company, and those are quite a few, and they go through this process of looking internally. Are they conscious? Are they environmentally this? How are they treat their people? So it's pretty big. So I am excited for you, wishing you all of that wonderful stuff and getting that certification. And and to allude to kind of wrapping up our Q&A, you mentioned if people had help or needed help. And here's where I would close, because again, everybody may be at a different place in their business journey. Some may have the idea but haven't started. Some may have started it but don't have a team. Some may have a team but they realize now that maybe they're not doing it the way that they should. Who can help with setting all of this up? So let's say, I just don't have the time to do all of this. I don't know. I don't want to make a mistake. Yeah, I can Google it, but I don't know if I'm really going to do that. Is there a resource or someone who can help them put all the pieces together?
Yeah, you can reach out to HR consultants like our firm. There is a nonprofit organization, what is the name of it, in Orange County, that helps businesses called, I believe, One Stop. And that could be a resource for you, which I believe they help. There's also a coaching organization, again, nonprofit and free, called SCORE. So check them out and help you. And then of course you can work with an HR consultant if you ever have the budget for someone to work with you, or you could just ask your HR friends. So you can always work with your network, work with the people you work with to have them help you. I myself offer a 30-minute free consult to anyone who just wants to talk about what's going on. So you're more than welcome. I can help you there free of charge, just to make sure you're getting off on the right foot.
And that was a nice little segue for from El Camino, their SBDC Center, wink, wink, because that's their Small Business Development Center. And they're created. There's one in every city. There's chapters all over the place. I don't know about Florida and Iowa. We got to check on that. But generally they're there and they provide like SCORE. They'll have classes, they'll have programs. I know there's incubators out there that offer these, even educational programs. I know USC is running one. So there is information in addition to what information LeiLani gave you. So thank you, LeiLani, for all of your wealth of information. We were going to put her contact information in there. If people want to get a hold of LeiLani, they can. It was some wealth of information. I learned a lot, and I realized we have there's a little bit of overlap there, because my space is HR. I'm not an HR person, but my contacts are usually HR folks. So I may have to reach out to you later on, but thank you so much for your knowledge.
Thank you so much. I had a lot of fun, and thank you. El Camino College is just fantastic.